Welcome to The Big Picture. I'm Phil Arno. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the status of your state, New York, and where we're going with the economics, the taxes, the regulations, and some of the acts that have been passed that are going to directly affect you going forward and your children. With me today, my guest is Stefan Mychajliw, who is basically the man about all in terms of politics and what's going on nationally and locally and in the state. Stefan, tell me first what you're doing today.
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me. You guys are popular. Every time I'm on your network, my phone just blows up. Hey, I saw you here, and so you're a friend for a long time, and it's great to see you. And thank you for having me. Yeah, so life is good. Following my time as Erie County Comptroller, I stayed in politics, but on the other side of the equation, helping others get elected. And I was with a national Republican firm called Big Dog Strategies, and then joined the Vivek Ramaswamy campaign for president as his spokesperson. And then I went to the other side still of helping like-minded conservatives and Republicans get elected office across not only New York State, but the country. You know, the Bernie Moreno race for United States Senate. Right now, full disclosure, I am working politically on the Elise Stefanik campaign on her political operation, North Country Congresswoman. And my big gig is still in media. There's a newspaper in New York City, Long Island, called the South Shore Press. And I help manage and run that, and living in Elma with my wife, Ashley, and our children. And life is great, no complaints.
Well, that's great. And there's so much going on. It's never a dull moment. In New York State, let's start out with one thing that people probably don't know too much about. The media is very selective in terms of what they tell you. And Stefan, you used to be in the media, so you know how this works. I mean, it's changed enormously. I'm not sure how many of you know, but starting in 2026, less than 5 months from now, if you are going to build a house or a business and you want to put up a building in this state, if it's under 7 stories tall, you can't have anything other than electric heating that state or that building, heating, the water. It's all electric, and that's no gas furnace, no gas stoves. Can you imagine what that's going to do to your bottom line in terms of economics? And that's law now. It's on the books in New York State. It takes effect in less than 6 months.
It's shocking, actually, and I think Kathy Hochul has earned the moniker worst governor in America, and that's just one of the many anti-business, anti-family policies that hurt everyday New Yorkers. This mandate that says we're going to ban gas stoves and everything has to be electric, it's going to kill businesses. No one is going to want to build a new home because it's going to cost $20,000, $30,000 more just to buy a brand new home because the systems are going to be all electric. My family lives in Elma, New York. Power goes out on a regular basis. I've never heard an instance where there's been a gas-powered outage. What's a senior citizen going to do if they're living in a new home, all electric, middle of a storm, just like the blizzard of 22 that killed tragically so many people, and the power goes out? So it's putting people at risk, it's putting seniors' lives at risk, and it's going to kill these green scams, jobs across New York State. It's not just that one, Phil, too. Pretty soon, in a few years, the only car you're going to be able to buy in New York State is all electric. So these green scams that are pushed by these woke radical progressives, a lot of these politicians like this Kami Mamdani or Kathy Hochul, they bend the knee to the woke mob. And in the end of the day, it really hurts businesses and families across New York.
Well, I am always looking for the explanation, the why of what's going on. And it seems that the Democrat Party, it's not the party of John F. Kennedy anymore. It's not the party that is moderate in any respect. And people out there who are loyal Democrats, it's very, very tough to let go. You have these ideals and you have these loyalties, but your Democrat Party has changed. It's now moved so far to the left. I mean, a socialist about to become the mayor of New York City. It's just, I don't think people really want to go down that road.
But they are.
But in this state, they're so entrenched, the Democrats are so entrenched, and with the assistance of the media, they can put on a face that basically says, trust us.
My late mom, Arlene Mychajliw, God bless her soul, hardcore Democrat, Kennedy Democrat. Even when I first ran for controller, I remember her saying to me, honey, I don't know what I'm going to do. I've never voted Republican before. And I said, we could vote for me on the conservative or independent side. She goes, oh, thank God. But she was a moderate Democrat, Kennedy Democrat, pro-life, pro-labor. She would not be recognized in today's Democratic Party at all. You have politicians like the worst governor in America, Kathy Hochul, bending the knee to this Kami Mamdani. You mentioned the why, Phil. It's because the Democratic Party has been hijacked by radical progressives like Bernie Sanders, AOC, and Kami Mamdani, to the point where Kathy Hochul's very first executive order, the first executive order, was cementing New York State as a sanctuary state, banning gas stoves, cashless bail, coddling hardcore criminals, and making our community safe. That's Kathy Hochul's New York, but it's also the Democratic Party who has bent the knee to these radical extremists, because people like a Senator Schumer or Kathy Hochul, they are petrified of being primaried by these socialists and these communists. So they go along with these radical policies. And at the end of the day, it kills jobs, hurts businesses, and hurts families across New York.
Well, politics is a complicated game. And, you know, the explanation, first of all, the far left comes down with about 20% of the voters. You know, they basically, 80% of people don't agree that men should be beating up women in sports. 80% of the population don't think that the border should be absolutely unregulated. Anybody can come in without any verification of whether they're, you know, healthy, or whether, you know, what their political, you know, whether they're gang members. Most people think that we should have common sense, okay? The far left throws that out, and they have an agenda that I'm not quite sure of the why, other than it, you know, it weakens the country. But the power that they have, it's got to be connected with money. It has, because the reasonable, moderate Democrats, they have no choice but to go along with the party. And the party has gone in this direction. It's got to be getting financing like from the George Soroses of the world. And when money takes over a party, they don't care about the 80% of the people. All they care about is, okay, I'm going to get money. I'm going to have money to rerun, you know, for my office, to, you know, influence the people around me, and so on. I don't understand it.
Or it could be something along the lines of just clinging to naked, raw ambition and power. When I was Erie County Controller, I remember driving to Albany once with then Assemblyman Mickey Kearns, who is now our Erie County Clerk. And it struck me where he told me a story of his dad, and he said, there is no right way to do the wrong thing. You know, and also along those lines, you know, the quote of, hey, it's easy to make decisions, we know what your values are. When you have a core base of principles, it's very easy to make decisions as a politician. I always did as Erie County Controller. Alfreda Sleminski, the former county controller, she always said, good governance leads to good politics, not the other way around. So I think those of us who went into public service to serve, be a citizen legislator, go back to the private sector, that was our moral compass. I think just politicians like, again, we mentioned Kathy Hochul. When she was the Erie County Clerk, she supported the ban of driver's licenses for illegal immigrants, got an A rating from the NRA when running in a red meat Republican district. Hitching her wagon to Andrew Cuomo, all of a sudden, she became this radical progressive that no one in Buffalo really recognized. So it could be along the lines of, hey, we need to find folks who are business people, people who care more about values and actually serving, rather than doing anything and saying anything just to stay in office for the power, prestige, or as you mentioned, Phil, just the money.
Well, where is this going? I mean, we can have a trend that carries the state downward, which the state has lost almost $1 trillion in assets and services, according to the Business Council of New York State, in the last 3 years. Almost $1 trillion going to Florida and Tennessee and South Carolina and North Carolina. How long can that be sustained? And how long will people continue to go down the same path and have the state actually fall apart?
Mark my words, New York City's gone. There is zero chance that so-called Kami Mamdani is going to lose the race for New York City mayor. Zohran Mamdani is going to be the mayor of New York City. And that's going to be the death knell of the Big Apple. You're going to see socialist, communist policies, defund the police. That's all coming back in New York City. New York City is gone. Our last saving grace is really the race for governor in 2026. Are we going to actually go down the continued path of destruction? As you mentioned, losing $1 trillion to other states, the out-migration of families who really just can't afford to live in New York State anymore. Businesses, who's going to want to stay in New York City if you're a business owner or a family with crime rampant and Kami Mamdani as your mayor? And so 2026 is going to be the turning point in New York State with the governor's race, whether it's going to be an Elise Stefanik against Kathy Hochul, or there's also a Democratic primary. We can't forget that one, Phil. Right now, the lieutenant governor is running a Democratic primary against Kathy Hochul. I think 2026 is the last stand for New York State. And depending on which direction it goes, I think you're going to find either a lot more people and a lot more businesses fleeing New York, or if it goes in a different direction and we change leadership to save New York State, I think it could be the saving grace that actually puts us back in the right direction.
Well, if you're watching right now and you're thinking about this and you're thinking about New York State, so many of our friends and relatives have decided to pick up and leave. That is one of the toughest decisions that anybody could ever make. This is home. This is where your friends and your relatives are. This is where your history is. To pick up and relocate is one of life's most difficult decisions, but people are doing it, and they're doing it because the regulation, the taxes, the atmosphere in the state has just become oppressive. It's a threat to you, to your family, your kids. If you want your kids near you and you're in New York State, good luck. I mean, who knows, what the future holds for families. Anyway, we're out of time for this segment. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about broader issues and maybe in the national spotlight some of the things that are going on. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Big Picture. My guest is Stefan Mychajliw, and we're talking about New York State politics and some of the things that are going on nationally. Donald Trump just signed an executive order that gets rid or wants to get rid of cashless bail. He wants criminals to be held accountable when they break the law, not just released out on the street. And many people are released back out on the street, and within hours they offend again. And that's not an exaggeration. I've talked to various law enforcement agencies, and they say, we just can't do anything.
Yeah, there's a massive crime crisis, not just in Washington, D.C., but here in New York State, and cashless bail is the culprit. So I applaud President Trump for signing this executive order. And in layman's terms, it basically says, okay, if a state like New York says, we're going to have cashless bail, we're going to let hardcore criminals back on the street, violent offenders roaming communities, making families less safe, then fine. We're going to pull all of your federal funds. And as I mentioned before, Phil, full disclosure, I am doing some political work for Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, and she's leading the charge in Washington, D.C. to work on legislation to codify into law that executive order that says basically we've got to get rid of cashless bail. So from their perspective, if blue state leaders and Democrats like a Kathy Hochul, a Gavin Newsom, or the mayor of Washington, D.C., if they don't want to protect their communities, then these other leaders will. These America First patriots will. Families deserve better. No one deserves to live in a community where they know that it's basically just a spin of the wheel, that criminals are going to go right through the court system and right back on the street. No one deserves that. No one wants that. Phil, it blows my mind that you've got protesters who are protesting President Trump, sending troops in to protect Washington, D.C., saying, we don't want you here, and all they're doing is making communities safe.
You know, I see posts on Facebook and various social media that basically people that I know who are quite reasonable and well thought out. I mean, but when it comes to Trump, they basically have no understanding as to what he's doing. You know, they basically look at him as a evil, and that's, they can't see beyond that. Now, his personality, I mean, that's an acquired taste. You know, I'm not going to pass judgment on how much he talks or what he says, but I judge people on what they do. And he's trying to get a handle on crime, okay, close the border. He's trying to improve the economy by bringing a reasonable trade policy here so that manufacturing jobs don't go overseas automatically. It's economically feasible for people to start businesses here and manufacture. And we've been at a disadvantage for years, you know, the generations actually, with tariffs being charged to us so that we can't sell products overseas, but everybody can sell products to us. And he just wants fairness, and everybody thinks that that's evil somehow.
I don't understand how having an America First policy is a negative, how it's bad. I think whether you're Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, if someone says, I want to put America first, I want to take care of our people first, I want to implement policies that help families across America, that's a great thing. And it was a blessing and privilege to be Vivek Ramaswamy's spokesman for his national campaign. And Vivek would always say on the campaign trail, a nation without a border is not a nation. And we saw that in the previous administration, wide open border policies. Anyone can come across at any time. And what that led to was violent, hardcore criminals committing horrific acts across the country and hurting, raping, killing law-abiding citizens. Look at here in New York. New York, again, Kathy Hochul's very first executive order was cementing New York State as a sanctuary state. Look at how many illegal immigrants came to New York State, beat, rape, and killed New Yorkers. Even here in Erie County, how many migrants came. There was the terrible, horrific story of the one migrant raping a woman in front of a child, sexually assaulting a hotel worker. That's because America had an America Last policy under the previous administration, and they let anyone across the border. And President Trump secured the border and protected Americans. America First policies help Americans, and I just don't understand how people fight that.
Well, you know, there's a socialist philosophy. Anytime a socialist entity comes in to try and take over an area, the very first thing they do is they attack religion, because you can't have your local priest telling you what's right and wrong, the morals that you should be, you know, believing in. And once they've attacked religion, then they attack the family. You can't have dad telling you, you know, to straighten up and behave, because that's the job of the government. That's the job of the socialist powers. So you get rid of religion, you destroy the family structure, and then the next thing that you do is you destroy patriotism. You can't have a bunch of dead white guys from 200 years ago telling you what the government should and should not do. That's not acceptable, because today it's the government's job to set the rules. And if you listen to the Constitution, you know, that's a danger. You know, then it infringes on the socialist powers to be. So this is a slow takeover, and people, you know, it's like the putting the turtle in the boiling water,
right.
Basically, and turning it off slowly. People are now much more subjected to socialism than we were 30 years ago or more. And people kind of recognize it, but it's been so gradual, it seems normal.
But even look at the Black Lives Matter movement of many moons ago, which in turn, of course, parallels into the defund the police movement. I mean, the actual part of their political agenda was the breakdown of the nuclear family. And you just mentioned that was not by an accident. So years ago, we had these outside groups pushing that narrative. Now it's in the mainstream. Again, you go to Zohran Mamdani in New York City. He's been very open about having no private property. He actually supports the notion of no one owning property, that it's government-run grocery stores. It failed miserably in Kansas City. They shut them all down, but he wants to bring government-run grocery stores to New York City.
The catchword is free. Free food, free, phones, free, places to live. Nothing is free. Somebody pays for it. And it's not the government, because the government has no money. Only what the government can take from the people. I mean, you got to think this through, because it's not shallow, it's complicated. But the government has no money. It only has money that it takes from the people.
And they're not hiding it anymore. The political party is the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America. They wear it like a badge of honor. And I'm telling you, it is coming to New York City. Kami Mamdani is going to be the next mayor of the Big Apple. And you're right. The big government in New York City, the big government in New York State, $254 billion budget. Now, New York State, shockingly, is facing a $34 billion deficit, a $34 billion shortfall. So what's going to happen? And it's a great point you make, Phil, because there's going to be that one pot of money the government spends, of our money in New York City and New York State. But guess what? That money comes from somewhere. It comes from your tax base, the people and the businesses who are still here. If you have this out-migration of people, an out-migration of businesses, the money that you need to collect is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and the people who pay it are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So that means a much bigger burden on those of us who are still stuck here. I can't tell you, Phil, I remember when I was a student at Syracuse University, how badly I wanted to come back to Buffalo, how badly I wanted to live in New York State and be closer to my family. And with our younger kids, Phil, I would never tell them to stay in New York State. Never. And that's sad. You mentioned people leaving. Like, how sad is it that a lot of you have to get on a plane to see your kids and grandkids? The only time you see your kids or grandchildren is through FaceTime. We deserve better. That's sad, and it's, I think, going to get worse before it gets better.
It is. It's traumatic to lose your family, to make them spread across the country so that they're not next door. You can't, go down the street and say hello. You can't have dinner every once in a while. It basically lowers the quality of life. New York State is already the worst taxed state out of all 50 states. New York ranks 50 when it comes to taxes. Can't get any worse. I mean, it's
a race to the bottom.
It is, and I just don't know how far we can go along this path. And I don't know, and unfortunately, the people here are probably not the problem we're facing. It's the people in New York City and certain areas of, like, the city of Buffalo. They basically, go along with the socialism thing in New York City. They follow suit and do what they're told. And it's a little bit sad. It's
heartbreaking.
And I'm not quite sure what the answer is.
The answer is going to get worse before it gets better. I'm telling you, with every fiber of my being, and I've been blessed to work in media and politics a long, long time, people are begging Andrew Cuomo or Eric Adams or other people to get out of that New York City mayor's race. So there can be a one-on-one race with Kami Mamdani. That's not going to happen. Zohran Mamdani is going to be the next mayor of New York City. And then New York State's going to reach a breaking point. Okay, what are we going to do in the governor's race in 2026? That is going to be the last hope for anyone still remaining in the People's Republic of New York. The classic line, with the last person leaving New York, please turn out the lights. And that's why I think New York City's gone. It's going to be Kami Mamdani as a mayor. And our last hope is that governor's race in 2026. And if it doesn't go the way that a lot of people want, I think we're done.
Well, we've got about a minute left. Elise Stefanik is making a lot of headlines lately. Is she going to run, do you think?
She has said that she's going to announce after the November election. She's a great America First patriot. One big beautiful bill, secured the border, unleashes the power of American energy, record tax cuts. I think she'd be a great governor.
Well, you know, under normal circumstances, I would say the odds are way, way against her. But if Mamdani gets in as mayor of New York City, I think you may be right. I think that may be the best tool that the Republicans have for the governor's race.
It's going to happen.
You know. Okay, well, I think we're out of time for this big picture. I want to thank you for watching. Hopefully we didn't make your blood boil too badly. Grab an aspirin and tune in next week when we do something similar. Again, thank you for watching The Big Picture, and thank you very much for watching WBBZ-TV. We're your local station, and we count on you, and we appreciate you. We will see you next time on The Big Picture.